The flash of gunfire erupts across the moonlit desert as armor-piercing rounds tear through David Chen's border patrol vehicle. Metal screams against metal as high-caliber bullets shred through the reinforced doors. Most agents would panic, most would die. But even as bulletproof glass explodes inward and hot brass rains down from the canyon walls, David's hands remain steady on the wheel. 15 years of operating in the world's deadliest combat zones taught him one truth: an ambush is only the beginning. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Muzzle flashes illuminate the darkness as 3 black tactical vehicles emerge from the shadows, executing a perfect blocking maneuver that speaks of military training. Their precision tells David everything he needs to know. These aren't amateur smugglers or desperate migrants. These are cartel hunters, professionals who have done this 100 times before, men who expect this to be routine. David allows himself the faintest smile as he counts the shooters. 15 minimum, armed with military-grade weapons. They brought enough firepower to eliminate a small army. But they made one critical mistake. They brought guns to hunt someone trained to be a ghost. The engine sputters and dies as rounds pierce the engine block. David's muscle memory takes over as he reaches beneath his seat, fingers wrapping around cold steel. The flashbang grenade is one of many unofficial modifications to his patrol vehicle. The cartel soldiers are closing in now, boots crunching over broken glass as they approach the riddled truck. Their voices carry through the night air, casual and arrogant. Just another dead cop in the desert. The flashbang arcs through the shattered window. In the split second before detonation, David's already moving. The explosion drowns out their surprised shouts as he rolls from the vehicle, his titanium combat knife finding the first shooter's carotid artery before the man's eyes can adjust. Blood sprays across sun-bleached rocks as David claims the fallen man's modified M4 carbine. 2 more cartel soldiers drop before they realize their target isn't in the truck, wasn't even wounded. Es una trampa. The panic in their voices brings back memories of other ambushes, other battlefields. But David isn't that man anymore. The SEAL who earned the call sign Shadow died in Afghanistan along with half his team. He's something else now, something that learned to hunt in the dark. Gunfire erupts in wild, uncontrolled bursts as the remaining cartel soldiers spray at shadows. But David's already gone, using his intimate knowledge of the terrain to disappear into the canyon walls. Through his rifle scope, he watches them bunch together, making rookie mistakes. Fear does that to men who've only ever been the predators. His radio crackles, Border Patrol dispatch requesting his status. David keys his mic, keeping his voice calm despite the adrenaline singing in his veins. Unit 173, radio check. Let them think everything's routine. He has work to do. A single shot rings out. 1 cartel soldier drops, the round passing through his chest and into the man behind him. The others scatter, firing blindly at the canyon. Walls, but there's nowhere to run. They chose this killing ground thinking it would be his grave. Now it's going to be theirs. David chambers another round, watching through his scope as the cartel soldiers try to retreat to their vehicles. They're radioing for backup, voices shaking as they report contact with an unknown shooter. But backup won't save them. They crossed a line they didn't know existed, woke something they don't understand. Now they're about to learn why some shadows are best left undisturbed. The moon rises over the canyon rim, bathing the rocks in pale light. A coyote's howl echoes through the night, a sound like mocking laughter. David allows himself another small smile as he lines up his next shot. The cartel wanted to send a message tonight, and they will, just not the one they planned. Time to hunt. Through his night vision goggles, David tracks the remaining cartel soldiers as they attempt to establish defensive positions. Their training is showing through now. These aren't ordinary gunmen. Their movements speak of military background, probably former special forces hired for their expertise. In another life, they might have been his brothers in arms. But they chose to sell their skills to the cartels, to become predators preying on the innocent. Now they're about to learn what it means to be prey. The first man dies, never knowing what hit him. One moment he's scanning the ridgeline, the next he's falling, a precise shot having severed his brainstem. The second manages to squeeze off a burst of fire before David's bullet finds him. The rest scatter, finally showing the fear they should have had from the beginning. David moves like a ghost through the familiar terrain, each step placed with deadly precision. 10 years of patrolling this border taught him every shadow, every hidden cave, every patch of loose shale that might betray movement. Now he puts that knowledge to lethal use. The cartel soldiers are professionals, but they're fighting on his hunting ground. Every rock, every ridge, every twist of the canyon is a weapon in his arsenal. The radio chatter tells him everything he needs to know. They're calling in reinforcements, heavy weapons, even air support. Good. Let them come. Let them bring everything they have. It won't be enough. Because what they don't understand is that this isn't just about survival anymore. This is about sending a message to every cartel that thinks they can operate with impunity on his border. The next phase of the hunt begins with psychological warfare. David uses their own radio frequencies against them, broadcasting the sounds of movement from different directions. Let them waste ammunition shooting at shadows. Let the fear build until they start making mistakes. He's learned that terror is a weapon more potent than any bullet. Through his scope, he watches their discipline crumble. These men are used to being the hunters, used to having the advantage of numbers and firepower. Now they're learning what it means to be hunted by something they can't see, can't fight, can't escape. The ghost stories they dismissed as superstition are becoming terrifyingly real. High above the canyon, a cartel spotter with a thermal scope never sees the knife that ends his watch. David claims the man's radio, listening as panic spreads through their ranks. Team 2, respond. Does anyone have eyes on Rodriguez's position? The radio traffic grows increasingly frantic as their carefully planned ambush dissolves into chaos. This is just the beginning. By sunrise, the story of tonight will spread through every cartel safe house and smuggling route along the border. They'll learn that their money can't protect them, that their numbers mean nothing, that there are predators far deadlier than they could imagine hunting in these borderlands. Because David isn't just fighting a cartel tonight. He's waging a war against every criminal organization that thinks it can operate with impunity. Every corrupt official who takes their blood money. Every killer who preys on the innocent. They thought they were untouchable. Now they're about to learn that some ghosts are very, very real. The hunt continues under the desert moon, and the night is just beginning. The desert heat ripples across the canyon floor as Marco Reyes sweeps. His customized Barrett 50 cal back and forth, searching desperately for any sign of movement. 8 of their men are already dead, 4 from the initial ambush, 4 more picked off with surgical precision as they tried to reach their vehicles. The radio crackles with confused chatter as the remaining teams try to coordinate a search pattern. But how do you hunt a shadow? Blood trails mark the rocks where their target disappeared. Too much blood, they thought, for anyone to survive. Yet, something keeps moving through the darkness, striking without warning and vanishing before they can respond. Marco's finger trembles against his trigger guard as he remembers the cold efficiency of those shots. 1 bullet per target, no wasted rounds. This isn't some lucky border patrol agent who got lucky. This is something else entirely. 1,000 miles away in a fortified compound deep in the Sinaloa Mountains, Xavier El Coyote Ruiz crushes his satellite phone in rage. The news of the failed ambush burns in his gut like acid. For 10 years he's been running operations across this border, eliminating any law enforcement that dared interfere. Each hit was clean, professional, a message to others to stay away. But this is becoming a massacre. "Send everyone!" he orders, his voice deadly calm despite the fury building inside him. "I want that entire canyon turned inside out. Find this ghost and bring me his head." The lieutenant receiving the order doesn't dare mention that they've already lost contact with 3 more search teams. Some messages are better left undelivered. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Back in the canyon, David moves like a predator through familiar hunting grounds. The years spent patrolling these borders taught him every hidden cave, every patch of loose shale that might betray movement. Now he puts that knowledge to deadly use. A cartel spotter positioned on a high ridge never sees the blade that ends his watch. David claims the man's radio, listening as fear spreads through their ranks. Team 3, respond. Has anyone got eyes on Valencia's position? The radio traffic grows increasingly desperate, discipline crumbling as terror takes hold. David retrieves a small notebook from his tactical vest, recording frequencies and call signs. Each transmission reveals another piece of their operation. Numbers, positions, fallback points, information that will prove invaluable later. He spots 2 more cartel soldiers moving along the canyon wall, trying to maintain cover. Their technique is solid. Israeli-trained, probably ex-Sayeret, hired for their expertise in counter-insurgency operations, but they're still making amateur mistakes, still treating this like a normal hunt. David waits until they pass beneath his position, then drops silently behind them. The first man dies before he hits the ground. The second has time to turn, eyes widening in recognition before David's knife finds his throat. The look in those eyes tells him his reputation is spreading. Good. Fear makes men sloppy. A burst of gunfire erupts from across the canyon, wild, uncontrolled shots at imagined movement. David uses the distraction to relocate, keeping to the shadows as he works his way toward the source. Through his rifle scope, he counts 4 more targets bunched together for protection. Their body language screams their terror. Backs pressed. Together, guns pointed outward, jumping at every sound. They know they're being hunted, they just don't understand by what. The radio comes alive again, this time with a new voice, harder, more authoritative. "This is Commander Santos. All units fall back to Rally Point Echo. I repeat, fall back and regroup. We're changing tactics." David allows himself a grim smile. They think numbers and organization will save them. They still don't understand what they're dealing with. He lets the 4-man team begin their retreat, following at a distance as they make their way toward the rally point. Their movement is hurried, undisciplined. Twice they nearly spot him, but fear has tunneled their vision. They see only what's in front of them, forgetting to check their flanks, their rear, the high ground. Basic mistakes that get men killed. In places like this, the rally point turns out to be a natural bowl formation, easily defensible with clear lines of sight in all directions. Under different circumstances, it would be a smart choice. But David has been herding them exactly where he wants them, As the scattered teams converge on the position, he begins his real work. First come the charges from his vest. Small, compact explosives that would raise uncomfortable questions if found in a Border Patrol vehicle. He places them strategically around the bowl's rim, using the natural rock formations to amplify their effect. Next are the flashbangs, positioned to create overlapping zones of disorientation. By the time the last team arrives, the trap is set. Through his scope, David counts 22 targets remaining from the original ambush force. They've positioned themselves well, establishing overlapping fields of fire and maintaining good spacing. Their commander, Santos, is clearly experienced. In another life, under different circumstances, David might have respected the man's professionalism. But they crossed a line when they targeted law enforcement, when they decided that killing Border Patrol agents was acceptable collateral damage in their business model. The sun climbs higher, baking the rocks and creating shimmering waves of heat distortion. David watches through his scope as dehydration and stress begin to take their toll. The cartel soldiers grow irritable, arguing among themselves about their next move. Some want to press the search, convinced their target must be weakening from blood loss. Others want to pull back, call in reinforcements, approach this with overwhelming force. Santos struggles to maintain control, but David can see the fear eating away at their discipline. The radio crackles again. El Coyote himself, this time, demanding updates. David listens as Santos tries to explain the situation, to convey the tactical nightmare they found themselves in without sounding weak. The cartel leader's response is predictable. No retreat, no surrender. Find the target and eliminate him, or don't bother coming back at all. David checks his watch. The temperature will peak in another hour, bringing with it the kind of heat that makes men's minds play tricks on them. Already he can see them starting to crack, jumping at shadows, wasting ammunition on imagined movement. Time to push them over the edge. He begins with psychological warfare, small things at first, designed to fray their nerves. A dislodged rock that clatters down the canyon wall, a flash of movement glimpsed from the corner of their eyes. The distant echo of boots on stone that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Each time they react, spraying bullets at phantoms, wasting precious ammunition and water as the sun beats down mercilessly. Through it all, David waits. Patience was the first lesson they taught him in SEAL training, and the hardest to master, but he learned it well, just as he learned that fear is a weapon more potent than any bullet. He watches through his scope. As the cartel soldiers begin to turn on each other, accusations flying as their nerves fray. The moment comes when he spots Santos reaching for his satellite phone, likely preparing to call El Coyote and advise a full withdrawal. David lines up his shot carefully, accounting for wind and heat distortion. The bullet takes Santos in the throat, a killing shot that sprays blood across the men nearest to him. Before they can react, David triggers the first set of charges. The explosions aren't meant to kill, the yields are too small for that. But in the enclosed space of the bowl, amplified by the rock walls, they create chaos. Men scatter in all directions, training abandoned in favor of blind panic. The flashbangs detonate in sequence, creating a disorienting storm of light and sound that makes coordinated resistance impossible. David moves like a ghost through the chaos, every shot precise, every movement economical. Those who try to stand and fight die first, their return fire wild and ineffective. Those who run fair know better, cut down as they scramble for the supposed safety of the canyon walls. A few manage to reach their vehicles, but the engines won't turn over. David disabled them hours ago, counting on this exact scenario. In the end, only one man is left alive, chosen specifically for the message. He'll carry back. David puts a round through each of his knees, ensuring he won't be followed, then approaches the wounded soldier. The man's eyes are wide with terror, his hands raised in surrender as David crouches beside him. "Tell El Coyote what happened here," David says, his voice cold and professional. "Tell him what happens when you target law enforcement. Tell him." The shadow sends his regards. He places a small object in the man's trembling hands, a SEAL team patch, weathered and blood-stained. Let them wonder about its significance. Let them start asking questions about who they really tried to kill. The message would spread, carried by whispered voices through cartel safe houses and smuggling routes. There's something in the desert, something that hunts cartel soldiers like prey, something that can't be killed. They tried to ambush a border patrol agent today. Instead, they woke a shadow, and now the real hunting begins. Miles away in his fortified compound, El Coyote receives the first reports of the massacre, his face remaining impassive as his lieutenants describe the scene. 22 of their best men dead. Precision kills that speak of advanced military training at the highest level. Only when they mention the SEAL patch does his composure crack. For the first time in years, El Coyote feels something he'd forgotten, existed: fear. He reaches for his phone, dialing a number known to only a handful of people. When it connects, he speaks quickly, urgently. "We have a situation. The shadow. He's real, and he's hunting us." The voice on the other end remains silent for a long moment before responding. "Then we'll have to hunt him first. I'll make some calls." That same night, David stands atop a desert ridge, studying cartel movement patterns through his advanced surveillance equipment. The tactical data he'd gathered from the dead men's phones and radios painted a clear picture. This wasn't just about drug running anymore. The cartels had evolved, diversifying into human trafficking, weapons smuggling, and something else, something that made his combat instincts scream danger. His laptop displays intercepted communications about shipments of military-grade hardware, next-gen thermal imaging, drone countermeasures, even experimental combat stims, things that shouldn't be in civilian hands, let alone cartel possession. Someone higher up was supplying them, using their distribution networks for something bigger than drugs. The desert wind carries the sound of approaching vehicles, a convoy moving under cover of darkness. Through his night vision, David counts 6 heavily armed SUVs escorting 2 unmarked shipping containers. The security formation is professional, incorporating counter-ambush tactics he recognizes from his SEAL days. These aren't ordinary cartel soldiers. David's mind flashes back to his final mission as a SEAL, the operation in Afghanistan that went sideways. His team had stumbled onto something similar. Shipping containers filled with classified tech, protected by contractors who fought with military precision. The official story blamed Taliban insurgents, but David had seen the truth. Someone was using the chaos of war to move things that shouldn't exist. Now that same pattern was playing out here in the borderlands. The cartels weren't just criminals anymore. They were becoming a private army for someone with very deep pockets and very dangerous ambitions. A drone buzzes overhead, sweeping the ridgeline with thermal imaging. David remains motionless, his specialized suit masking his heat signature. The convoy passes directly below his position, the guards scanning the darkness with practiced efficiency. They're good, but they're still thinking like soldiers, looking for conventional threats, not the ghost that's about to tear their operation apart. David begins his attack with surgical precision. The first charge detonates beneath the lead vehicle, flipping it onto its side and blocking the narrow road. Before the guards can react, precision fire eliminates the gunners in the rear vehicles. No wasted shots, no collateral damage, just the cold efficiency that earned him his reputation. The remaining guards respond with professional discipline, establishing a defensive perimeter around the containers. Their tactics are solid, but David isn't fighting fair. He triggers his second surprise, a series of EMP devices that kill their communications and vehicle electronics. In the darkness, cut off from support and command, even elite soldiers start to make mistakes. The battle that follows is a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare. David moves like a shadow through their positions, using their own tactics against them. Each kill is precise, purposeful, designed to create maximum psychological impact. Bodies are positioned to be found by their comrades, spreading fear and confusion through their ranks. Through it all, David maintains absolute control, never letting the violence become personal. This isn't about revenge or bloodlust. It's about dismantling something dangerous, piece by piece. The skills that made him a lethal SEAL are now turned to a higher purpose, protecting his country from threats that hide in plain sight. The convoy commander, a former Russian Spetsnaz operator by his tactics, manages to get off a final transmission before David's bullet finds him. They sent a ghost to hunt ghosts. The words carry weight, confirming David's suspicions. These men aren't just mercenaries. They're part of something bigger, something that knows about operators like him. With the guards eliminated, David approaches the containers. The electronic locks are military grade, but his specialized decoder makes quick work of them. Inside, he finds exactly what he feared: crates of next-generation combat tech, including prototype weapon systems that shouldn't exist outside of classified research facilities. More disturbing are the documents, detailed files on border patrol operations, including patrol routes and response protocols. The level of intelligence suggests a serious security breach, someone high up feeding information to the cartels. The corruption runs deeper than he imagined. David documents everything, sending encrypted data bursts to secure channels he established years ago. Let the right people see what's really happening in the borderlands. Then he rigs the containers. With thermite charges, some evidence needs to be erased completely. As he melts into the darkness, the containers burn behind him, sending a pillar of fire into the desert night. The message is clear. The borderlands aren't lawless anymore. There's something hunting in the shadows, something that can't be bought or scared off. In his compound, El Coyote receives the news of the convoy's destruction with cold fury. The loss of the shipment is bad enough, but the intelligence breach is worse. Someone is dismantling his operation with methodical precision, exposing connections that were supposed to remain hidden. He makes another call to his mysterious contact, the Shadow. He's not just hunting our men, he's hunting our secrets. The response is immediate, serious. Then we'll have to accelerate the timeline. Activate Protocol Omega. It's time to show this ghost what real monsters look like. Miles away, David reviews the intel from the convoy, his tactical mind piecing together a larger picture. The cartels are just the visible part of something more dangerous, a shadow war being fought with next-gen weapons and dirty money. Someone is using the border chaos as cover for an operation that threatens national security itself. A distant explosion echoes through the canyons. More cartel assets going up in flames as federal tactical teams act on his intel. Good. Let the official channels do their part while he hunts the real threats. Because that's what they trained him to be in the SEALs. Not just a warrior, but a guardian against enemies that hide in plain sight. The desert wind carries the sound of helicopter rotors, cartel gunships beginning their night hunt. David checks his weapons with practiced efficiency, mind already formulating new strategies. They think they're escalating the war, bringing in heavier weapons and better trained killers. They don't understand that every move they make just gives him more weapons to use against them. Because David isn't just fighting a cartel anymore. He's fighting to expose something bigger, a conspiracy that threatens everything he swore to protect. They thought they could hide their operation in the chaos of the borderlands, use criminal networks to move their illegal tech and influence. Instead, they're about to learn why some shadows are best left undisturbed. The hunt is evolving, becoming something more than a simple war against drug runners. David moves through the darkness like a ghost, mind focused on the bigger picture. Each cartel cell he eliminates brings him closer to the truth, closer to the real players behind this shadow war. The night is still young, and somewhere out there real monsters are about to learn what it means to be hunted by a ghost who cannot be bought, cannot be scared, and cannot be stopped. The real war is just beginning, and this shadow, he's just getting started. Twilight bleeds across the desert as David studies the cartel's safe house through his night vision scope. The two-story hacienda looks innocent enough. Weathered adobe walls, broken down trucks in the yard, solar panels on the roof that haven't worked in years. But the security tells a different story. Motion sensors hidden in the scrub brush. Infrared cameras disguised as broken light fixtures. Radio antennas masked as TV aerials. This isn't just a waypoint, it's a command center. David's been watching for 8 hours, logging patrol patterns and shift changes. 6 men on the perimeter, another 8 inside. Their movements suggest professional military training, but their discipline is slipping. They bunch together, check their phones, smoke where they shouldn't. Fear does that to men, makes them forget basic security protocols. The intel he gathered from the convoy's documents led him here. Every sophisticated operation needs a nerve center, somewhere to coordinate shipments and maintain communications. El Coyote's network is no different, but tonight, that predictability is going to cost them. David moves through the desert brush, using the growing darkness as cover. The first guard dies silently, combat knife finding the sweet spot between vertebrae. David catches the body before it falls, dragging it into the shadows. 1 down. The second guard rounds the corner 30 seconds later, right on schedule. The garrote pulls tight before he can make a sound. 2. Inside the house, the remaining guards are gathered around a bank of monitors, watching thermal camera feeds of the surrounding desert. They're looking for movement, for heat signatures that might betray an approaching threat, but they're watching the wrong spectrum. David's suit, stolen from a military black site years ago, masks his thermal signature. To their expensive cameras, he's just another cold spot in the desert night. The lock on the back door is military grade, but the frame is cheap civilian hardware. The breach charge makes less noise than a cough. David's inside before the sound can echo, moving through darkness like an old friend. The first guard he encounters is heading for the bathroom, weapon slung carelessly over his shoulder, a quick strike to the throat, followed by a knee to the temple. 3 down. The main security room is on the 2nd floor. He memorized the layout from satellite photos hours ago. 2 guards in the hallway, facing away from each other, sloppy. The first dies from a thrown knife in the base of the skull. The second has time to half-turn before David's there, hands snapping his neck with practiced efficiency. 5 down. Through the door, he can hear the remaining guards monitoring radio traffic, coordinating shipment schedules. They have no idea what's coming. The flashbang rolls through the doorway, detonating before they can react. David's through the door as it goes off, weapon up, muscle memory taking over. 2 double taps to center mass, 2 more guards down. The last man manages to draw his weapon, but fear makes him hesitate for a crucial half-second. That's all David needs. The guard's body hits the floor as David secures the room, checking corners with mechanical precision. 8 down. The house falls silent except for the soft hum of computer servers. Now the real work begins. David moves to the communications. Array, fingers flying over keyboards as he accesses their systems. Years of operating behind enemy lines taught him that information is often a deadlier weapon than bullets. The cartel's entire operation spreads out before him in streams of data. Shipping schedules, patrol routes, personnel files. He downloads everything, planting backdoors in their systems that will let him monitor their communications indefinitely. But information isn't enough. These men, these killers who target law enforcement with impunity, need to learn fear. David begins his psychological warfare campaign, using their own radio frequencies against them. First, he broadcasts the sound of gunfire and screaming across their tactical channels, recordings from the convoy ambush. Let them remember what happened to their friends. Next come the whispered warnings, the sound of movement in empty rooms, shadows that vanish when you turn to face them, small things designed to fray nerves and shatter confidence. The radio crackles with confused chatter as outposts report strange occurrences. Phantom patrols that appear on thermal scans but vanish when investigated. Supply trucks that never arrive at their destinations. Men who step away for a smoke break and disappear into the desert night. David monitors their growing panic with cold satisfaction. Fear is spreading through their ranks like a virus. Even El Coyote's iron discipline can't stop it. The cartel leader's voice comes across the command channel, demanding updates, threatening consequences for failure. But David can hear the edge in his voice now, the first crack in his composure. Moving to the map room, David studies the cartel's smuggling routes. Their operation is larger than he initially thought. Dozens of crossing points, hundreds of men, millions in product moving north every week. But every empire has its weak points. David's trained eye picks out the critical nodes, the choke, points where routes converge, the supply caches that keep their operation running. He selects his first target, a narrow canyon passage that serves as their main supply route. The satellite photos show heavy truck traffic consistent with major shipments. More importantly, it's where they're least expecting trouble. The cartel's paranoia is focused on their facilities, their safe houses. They've forgotten that wars are won by controlling territory. The explosives come next. Military-grade charges, stolen from the same black site as his thermal suit. David places them with surgical precision, wiring them into the canyon walls where natural rock formations will amplify the blast. When they detonate, the entire passage will collapse, forcing the cartel to reroute their shipments into areas they can't control. But physical destruction isn't enough. David wants them to feel hunted, to know that nowhere is safe. He accesses their communication systems again, this time planting false intelligence reports, phantom border patrol movements that will force them to delay shipments, fake DEA operations that will make them abandon safe houses. The beauty is in the subtlety. They'll never know which threats are real and which are ghosts. The sun is rising as David finishes his work, painting the desert in shades of blood and gold. He triggers the charges remotely, listening through their radio channels as panic erupts. The explosion echoes across the desert, followed by the rumble of collapsing rock. Over the command channel, El Coyote's voice rises in fury, demanding explanations, issuing threats. But beneath the anger, David hears something else, something that tells him his plan is working. Fear. Miles away in his compound, El Coyote stares at the reports flooding his screens. Another safe house compromised, another supply route destroyed. His men are starting to whisper about curses, about vengeful spirits that hunt in the desert night. He doesn't believe in ghosts, but the evidence before him is undeniable. Someone is systematically dismantling his operation, using tactics that speak of military training at the highest level. El Coyote reaches for his phone again, dialing a number that comes with its own set of dangers. The shadows taking apart our entire operation. We need help, professional help. The voice on the other end is silent for a long moment before responding. I'll make some calls, but remember, if this gets traced back to us, we're both dead. In the growing light, David watches through his scope as cartel vehicles converge on the collapsed canyon. Their movements are frantic, undisciplined. Fear has taken root in their ranks, sprouting into paranoia that no amount of training can overcome. They're starting to see threats in every shadow, danger in every unexpected sound. Good. Let them run. Let them hide. Let them fortify their compounds and double their guards. None of it will save them. Because David isn't just fighting a war, he's waging a campaign of psychological devastation. Every lost shipment, every destroyed safe house, every disappeared patrol adds to their terror. They thought they were the predators in this desert. Now they're learning what it means to be prey. The radio comes alive with El Coyote's voice, issuing new orders. They're consolidating their operations, pulling back to defensible positions, exactly as David planned. Let them bunch together, concentrate their forces. All it means is bigger targets, more efficient killing grounds. David shoulders his rifle and begins his withdrawal, moving like a shadow through the morning light. Behind him, the cartel safe house stands empty, its secrets stripped away, its security shattered. Just another piece removed from El Coyote's crumbling empire. The real hunting is about to begin, and this shadow is just getting started. Stars bleed their last light into the pre-dawn sky as David intercepts another encrypted transmission. The burst of data tells him everything he needs to know. El Coyote has called in the professionals, former Russian Spetsnaz, Israeli Special Forces veterans, ex-Delta operators. Mercenaries with the kind of training that makes them actual threats. David allows himself a grim smile as he reads through the intelligence. They're offering triple their usual rates, promising bonuses for confirmed kills. The shadow has cost. They're millions in lost shipments and destroyed infrastructure. Now they're spending millions more to hunt him down. But something in the transmissions catches his trained eye, a pattern he hadn't noticed before. He pulls up the patrol schedules downloaded from the cartel safe house, comparing them to official border patrol routes. The pattern emerges like blood in water. Someone's been feeding the cartel advance warning of every operation. The revelation hits him like a physical blow. The cartel's not just getting lucky. They have someone inside border patrol, someone with high-level access. That explains the perfect ambush positions, the conveniently timed equipment failures, the patrols that always seem to miss major shipments. Movement on his thermal scope pulls him back to the present. A four-man team is sweeping the ridgeline, half a mile east, moving with the kind of precision that speaks of serious training. Not cartel thugs playing soldier. These are the real deal. Their gear alone probably costs more than he made in a year with Border Patrol. High-end thermal imaging, satellite uplinks, counter-surveillance drones. They're hunting him the way he'd hunt himself. Through his scope, David studies their hand signals and movement patterns. 2 Russians, probably Spetsnaz by their CQB stance. 1 Israeli, judging by his close-quarters tactics. The 4th moves like American Special Forces, maybe Delta or Rangers. These men aren't motivated by cartel loyalty or fear. They're professionals, here for the paycheck and the challenge. Time to show them what real hunting looks like. David begins his counter-surveillance, using skills honed in 100 combat zones. The mercenaries are good, but they're fighting on his turf now. Every ridge, every shadow, every patch of loose shale that might betray movement. This is his domain. He spent years learning the desert's secrets, mapping its killing grounds. These men, for all their training, are just tourists. The first trap is subtle, a slight disturbance in the sand that looks like a boot print leading east. The Israeli operator spots it, signals his team. They adjust their formation, moving to follow the trail. Professional, cautious, but still falling into his web. The next sign is equally subtle. A broken twig, a displaced rock. Each clue leads them exactly where he wants them. Through his thermal scope, David watches as they approach the canyon entrance. Their caution is admirable. They sweep for trip wires, check sight lines, maintain proper spacing. But they're still thinking like soldiers, looking for military threats. They don't understand that the desert itself is his weapon. The first charge detonates not to kill, but to disorient. The blast echoes off the canyon walls, creating a cascading wall of sound that plays hell with their tactical communications. The second explosion brings down a carefully prepared rock slide, cutting off their retreat. Now they're committed, forced to push forward into the killing ground. David moves like a ghost through pre-planned positions, using the canyon's natural acoustics to mask his movement. A single shot rings out. The Israeli operator drops, a perfect headshot through his expensive tactical helmet. The others react instantly, returning fire with mechanical precision. But they're shooting at echoes, at shadows, at the ghost they can't see. The American merc tries to call for backup, but only static answers. David's signal jammers are working, perfectly isolating them from their support. The Russians split up, trying to flank his position, a fatal mistake. The next shot catches the first Russian in the throat as he rounds a boulder. His partner has time to realize the shot came from behind before David's knife finds his spine. Only the American is left now, the one who moves like Delta Force. He's behind solid cover, conserving ammunition, waiting for an opening. Smart, professional. But he's forgotten the first rule of asymmetric warfare. The battlefield itself is a weapon. David triggers the last charge, collapsing a section of canyon wall, not on the operator, but close enough to shower him with debris and dust. The distraction is all he needs. He closes the distance in seconds, combat knife leading. The American manages to get off 2 shots, good shots that would have killed a lesser opponent. But David's not fighting fair. The knife takes the mercenary in the kidney, a slow, painful death meant to send a message. As the man bleeds out, David crouches beside him. Who's the mole inside Border Patrol? The question is professional, emotionless. The dying man coughs. Blood, but his training holds. Go to hell. David shows him the Border Patrol badge he took from a dead agent. Someone inside is feeding intel to the cartel. Names. I want names. Something flickers in the mercenary's eyes. Recognition, maybe even respect. Station Chief Thompson, been on their payroll 3 years. His last breath carries one final warning. They're bringing in something worse than us, something not human. David lets the information settle as he retrieves his equipment. Thompson, it makes sense. The station chief would have access to all patrol routes, all operational plans. How many good agents died because of his betrayal? The rage builds cold and familiar in his chest, but he forces it down. Emotion gets you killed. Planning keeps you alive. The radio crackles with El Coyote's voice demanding updates from his mercenary team. David keys the mic, pitching his voice to carry just a hint of amusement. They're dead. They died well, professional to the end, but they died all the same. He pauses, letting the words sink in. You're going to need better hunters. The response is immediate, furious. Do you know what you're starting? Do you know what's coming for you? I know exactly what I'm starting. David's voice turns cold. I'm starting a war, and you're going to lose. Miles away in his compound, El Coyote hurls the radio against the wall. 4 of the best operators money can buy, dead in less than an hour. The Shadow isn't just surviving their attacks, he's systematically destroying everything they throw at him. The cartel leader reaches for his phone, dialing a number that comes with its own set of dangers. The mercenaries failed. We need the asset. The voice on the other end is hesitant. Are you sure? Once we deploy it, there's no going back. The attention, deploy it. Whatever it costs, whatever attention it brings, this ghost has to die. The sun rises over the desert, painting the rocks red like an omen. David's already moving, plans forming as he processes the new intelligence. Thompson's betrayal explains too much. The perfect ambush points, the failed backup, the suspiciously empty patrol zones. But it also gives him leverage, a way to hurt. The cartel, where they're most vulnerable. He accesses the encrypted files from the safe house again, this time looking for financial transactions. Every traitor leaves a money trail, and Thompson is no exception. Account numbers, transfer dates, offshore holdings, a digital breadcrumb trail leading straight to the corruption. But something else catches his eye. Massive payments to a research facility in Mexico City. The amounts are staggering, even for cartel money. The mercenaries' last words echo in his mind. Something worse than us. Something not human. What the hell have they been developing down there? A drone buzzes overhead. High altitude, military grade, not border patrol, not DEA. Someone else is watching, waiting. The game is changing, escalating beyond simple cartel violence. David checks his weapons, runs through his mental checklist. Whatever's coming, he'll be ready. The desert wind carries the sound of helicopter rotors, heavy transport birds moving. Under cover of darkness, El Coyote's reinforcements are arriving, but they're not what concerns him. It's what he can't see, can't predict, that raises the hair on his neck. Years of combat have taught him to trust his instincts, and right now they're screaming that something very bad is heading his way. Good. Let them come. All of them. The mercenaries, the corrupt agents, whatever horror they're brewing in that Mexican lab. The desert is his killing ground, and every enemy they send just gives him more weapons to use against them. They thought they were hunting a man, but they're about to learn the truth. They're hunting a shadow, and this shadow is about to show them what real fear looks like. In his hideout, David meticulously prepares for the next phase. The evidence against Thompson goes into encrypted files set to release to multiple agencies if he doesn't check in. Insurance, in case whatever's coming manages to get lucky. But he's not planning to die. He's planning to hunt. A message comes through one of his old Border Patrol channels, a desperate plea from a cartel insider wanting to defect. The source claims to have detailed intelligence about El Coyote's operation, including the location of his main compound and details about the mysterious research facility. It's perfect, precise, exactly the kind of information David needs. 2. Perfect. 20 years of combat experience screams trap, but that's exactly why David lets himself take the bait. Sometimes the best way to dismantle a trap is to spring it deliberately. He studies the meeting location through his scope, an abandoned copper mine 10 miles from the border. The terrain favors the ambushes, multiple elevated positions, clear. Fields of fire, limited escape routes. They're expecting him to approach from the north using the ridgeline for cover, so he comes from below. The mining tunnels are partially collapsed, choked with decades of debris and desert dust. David moves through them like a ghost, using thermal imaging to map guard positions above. 30 men minimum, positioned in elevated nests. Through his enhanced optics, he recognizes the distinctive heat signature of Barrett. 50 cal sniper rifles. They're not taking chances this time. The informant waits in the main entrance, surrounded by guards trying to look casual and failing. Their body language screams military training, but their discipline is weak. More hired guns, probably ex-military from various foreign armies. Dangerous, but predictable. The real threat will be hidden, waiting to spring the trap once David commits. He triggers the first charge, carefully positioned to collapse a section of tunnel far from his actual position. The response is immediate. Half the guards rush to investigate, leaving gaps in their coverage. Amateur move. David's already moving through the shadows, placing more charges at key structural points. They think they're the hunters. Time to show them what real hunting looks like. The second explosion brings down part of the mine entrance, creating chaos and confusion. Guards scramble for new positions, shouting contradictory orders. Through his thermal scope, David watches their disciplined formations dissolve into chaos. But something's wrong. The heat signatures are too uniform, too perfect, almost like the realization hits just as the first decoy explodes. They're using thermal dummies, heated mannequins designed to fool infrared sensors, which means the 50 cal round that punches through the rock wall inches from David's head isn't random fire. They knew exactly where he was. Someone's using next-generation thermal imaging, something that can see through solid rock. The technology exists. He used it himself on classified operations. But it shouldn't be in cartel hands. Time to improvise. David triggers all remaining charges simultaneously, bringing down major sections of the tunnel network. The collapse creates a dust cloud that blinds even advanced thermal imaging. He moves fast, switching positions as trained snipers try to track his movement. Another 50 cal round finds its mark, grazing his left arm. The pain is distant, irrelevant. He's had worse. The real trap reveals itself as vehicle engines roar to life. Armored SUVs emerge from concealed positions, cutting off escape routes. The sound of helicopter rotors grows louder. Gunships based on the engine pitch. They're not trying to kill him anymore. They're trying to herd him. David breaks into a sprint as the first helicopter gunship appears over the ridgeline. The M34 minigun opens up, stitching a line of destruction across the ground. These aren't cartel pilots. The gun runs are too precise, too professional. More mercenaries, probably ex-military contractors. The kind of men who know how to hunt ghosts. The SUVs converge on his position, trying to box him in. David counts 8 vehicles, each loaded with armed men. Their coordination is perfect. They're driving aggressive but controlled. He recognizes the technique. Standard Special Forces vehicle interdiction. They're forcing him toward the box canyon to the east, where the gunships will have clear shots. Time to change the game. David pulls a device from his tactical vest, something he acquired from a classified military warehouse years ago. The EMP grenade isn't strictly legal, but neither is anything else about this fight. He waits until the SUVs are perfectly positioned, then triggers the pulse. The effect is immediate. Engines die, electronics fry, night vision systems go dark. The helicopter pilots manage to maintain control, but their targeting systems are compromised. Basic tactics. Take away their technology advantage. Force them to fight on equal terms. The gunships break off their attack runs, unwilling to risk blind fire in the confusing terrain. The SUV occupants bail out, trying to establish a perimeter, but the darkness works against them now. Their expensive night vision equipment is useless, and they haven't learned to fight blind like David has. He takes them apart systematically, using sound and shadow to his advantage. A knife in the dark here, a precise shot there. Their return fire is wild, undisciplined. Fear has replaced training. They're shooting at shadows while the real ghost moves among them. But El Coyote's men aren't done yet. A new sound cuts through the chaos, the distinctive whine of drone motors. Small, agile reconnaissance units equipped with thermal cameras sweep the battlefield in coordinated patterns, trying to reacquire their target. David's arm throbs where the bullet grazed him, but the pain just sharpens his focus. He retrieves a specialized round from his vest, white phosphorus, another souvenir from his past life. The shot is perfect, catching the first drone in mid-flight. The burning chemical reaction creates a cascade of false heat signatures, confusing the remaining drone's thermal imaging. A burst of gunfire catches him in the side as he moves positions. The body armor absorbs most of it, but the impact drives him to one knee. More bullets snap past as hidden shooters try to zero in on his position. They're using sound and muzzle flash to track him now, adapting, learning. These aren't ordinary cartel soldiers. David fights through the pain, forcing his body to move. The wound isn't fatal, but it's slowing him down. Time to disappear, regroup. He throws his last flashbang toward a cluster of disabled SUVs. The explosion is his cover as he slips into a drainage culvert using the underground network he mapped hours ago. The sound of pursuit fades as he moves deeper into the tunnel system. Blood seeps through his tactical gear, leaving a trail he'll have to deal with. But first, he needs to understand what just happened. The ambush was too perfect. Too well coordinated. Someone gave them his playbook, someone who knows how he thinks, how he fights. The realization hits like another bullet. There's only one person who knows his tactics this well, someone from his old SEAL team, someone who was there in Afghanistan when everything went wrong, someone who's supposed to be dead. Miles away in his compound, El Coyote receives the after-action report. 20 men dead, millions in equipment destroyed, and still no confirmed kill. But his new advisor, a man whose name he doesn't know and doesn't want to know, seems pleased. He's wounded now, the advisor says, studying thermal imagery on multiple screens. And more importantly, he knows he's wounded. That changes everything. How? El Coyote demands. He's still out there, still hunting us. The advisor's smile is cold, professional, because now he has to rest, has to heal, and that makes him predictable. Bring me the asset. It's time to finish this. In the darkness beneath the desert, David tends to his wounds with practiced efficiency. The graze on his arm is superficial, But the shots to his side need attention. Field medicine kit from his tactical loadout, antiseptic, sutures, pressure bandages. He's had worse, but the injuries will slow him down, force him to adapt. But that's what ghosts do best. Adapt, evolve, learn. He reviews the ambush in his mind, analyzing every detail. The thermal imaging technology, the coordinated drone strikes, the precise tactical responses, all of it points to someone with intimate knowledge of Tier 1 operations, someone who knows how special operations teams think and fight. The face appears in his memory. Lieutenant Commander James Reaper Harrison, his old team leader, the man who led them into that trap in Afghanistan, who was supposed to have died in the explosion that killed half their unit. But ghosts have a way of coming back, don't they? David checks his weapons, inventories his remaining equipment. They thought wounding him would force him to retreat, to go to ground and heal. Instead, he's going to take the fight to them, because now he knows who he's really hunting, and more importantly, who's hunting him. The desert wind carries the sound of vehicles and helicopters as El Coyote's men search the area. Let them hunt. Let them think they have him on the run, because David's not running. He's planning. And this time, he's not just fighting cartel soldiers. He's fighting his own ghosts. Dawn approaches as David begins moving again, using the pain to sharpen his focus. They want to set traps? Fine, he'll show them what a real trap looks like. The cartel, the mercenaries, even his old commander. They're about to learn why some ghosts are better left alone. The hunt isn't over. It's just beginning. In the growing light, drone cameras capture thermal images of blood trails leading in multiple directions. El Coyote's men follow each one, hoping to find their wounded prey. But they're following false trails, hunting a ghost who's already 3 steps ahead. Because David isn't just fighting for survival anymore, he's fighting to expose a betrayal that goes deeper than cartel corruption. Pain lances through David's side as he makes the final adjustments to the DT cord. The wounds from the ambush throb with each movement, but pain is just another weapon if you know how to use it. Keeps you sharp, keeps you focused, helps you remember why you're fighting. Through his scope, he watches the cartel convoy approach the choke point. 8 trucks loaded with product. Gunners mounted in technical vehicles front and back. They're being careful. Drones sweep the area ahead. Guards scan the ridgelines with thermal optics. But they're looking for a wounded man trying to hide. They should be looking for a predator setting a trap. The first truck hits the trigger wire. The explosion isn't meant to kill, just disable the lead vehicle, force the convoy to bunch up. Standard cartel protocol is to push through ambushes, maintain momentum. But these aren't cartel drivers anymore. The mercenaries El Coyote hired react exactly as their training dictates. Establish a perimeter, secure high ground, protect the shipment. Textbook Special Forces response. And completely wrong for this environment. David's already moving as they deploy, using pre-planned routes to stay in their blind spots. The guards on the ridge are well positioned, maintaining overlapping fields of fire, but they're watching the wrong sectors. The threat isn't coming from the high ground, it's coming from below. The first charge detonates beneath the ridgeline, collapsing the unstable rock face. 3 guards go down in the avalanche. The others react professionally, shifting positions to cover the gap, but they're reacting to David's playbook, not realizing he's already moved on to something else. 2 more explosions bracket the convoy, filling the air with smoke and debris. The mercenaries hold formation, waiting for the attack they know is coming. But David isn't attacking. He's shaping the battlefield. The smoke provides cover as he moves to his next position, ignoring the burning protest from his wounds. Radio chatter fills his earpiece, the mercenaries coordinating their response in multiple languages: Russian, Hebrew, English. professional soldiers from different backgrounds, brought together by cartel money. But there's another voice cutting through the chaos, one he hasn't heard in years. Maintain discipline. Harrison's voice crackles across the command channel. This is his pattern: chaos, then precision. Watch your angles, check your corners. Remember Afghanistan. David feels his jaw clench at the mention of Afghanistan. Harrison, the man who led their team into that trap, who was supposed to have died in the explosion. Now he's here, working for the cartel, using everything he knows about David's tactics against him. Time to show them some new tricks. The next phase begins with a single shot, precise, deliberate. The bullet catches the fuel tank of one of the technical vehicles, but doesn't penetrate, just chips the armor, creates a small leak. The mercenaries notice it but don't react. They're too professional to be baited by single shots. 5 minutes later, the real attack begins. David triggers the incendiary rounds he planted earlier, specialized ammunition designed to ignite. Fuel. The leaking technical erupts in flames, sending guards scrambling for cover. In the confusion, no one notices the second part of the trap until it's too late. The burning fuel flows downhill along hidden channels David spent hours preparing, forming a wall of fire that cuts the convoy in half. Now they're separated. Their carefully planned defense split into isolated pockets. Time to pick them apart. He takes them systematically, using their own tactics against them. A sniper team moving to higher ground finds their path blocked by carefully placed claymores. A flanking maneuver runs straight into a prepared kill zone. Each move they make springs another trap, leading them exactly where David wants them. Harrison's voice comes across the radio again, tension bleeding through his professional calm. He's not attacking the shipment, he's attacking our tactics. Fall back to defensive positions, regroup at... The transmission cuts off as David's signal jammers activate. Another lesson from Afghanistan: control the communications, control the battlefield. The mercenaries are good, probably have backup channels and protocols, but for crucial seconds they're fighting blind. That's when David launches his real attack. He moves like a ghost through their lines, appearing and disappearing before they can respond. A knife in the dark here, a precise shot there. The mercenaries try to adapt, to counter his movement patterns, but they're still fighting the way they were trained, as soldiers, not hunters. The convoy's defensive formation crumbles as fear overtakes training. Guards bunch together, abandoning their sectors to stay close to their teams. Basic tactical errors that get men killed in places like this. Through it all, Harrison's voice continues to cut through on different frequencies, trying to rally his men. But David can hear the growing edge in his old commander's tone. Harrison taught him these tactics, trained him to think this way. But he never understood the most important lesson: adaptation. The desert itself becomes David's weapon. Carefully placed charges trigger rock slides that force the mercenaries into prepared kill zones. Hidden pits filled with razor wire shred vehicle tires. Every escape route, every fallback position becomes another trap. 2 hours after the ambush began, the convoy lies in ruins, burning vehicles illuminating the night sky as the few surviving mercenaries flee into the desert. They'll die out there, lost in terrain they don't understand. A fitting end for men who thought they could hunt a ghost, but David's not done yet. He retrieves a satellite phone from his gear, punching in a number he memorized years ago. Time to escalate this war. DEA Special Operations Division. Check your secure drop in 10 minutes. You'll find coordinates for 3 major cartel shipments, complete with routes and timetables, plus evidence linking them to corruption in border patrol. He ends the call before they can respond. The intel will be accurate. He made sure of that when he hacked the cartel's communications. By morning, federal task forces will be hitting locations across 3 states. El Coyote's entire operation is about to face a storm. Miles away in his compound, El Coyote watches thermal footage of the convoy's destruction. Beside him, Harrison studies the tactical display with professional detachment. He's better than before, Harrison admits. Afghanistan changed him, made him something else. You said you could stop him. El Coyote's voice is deadly quiet. I can. But we need to change our approach. He's not just fighting us, he's dismantling our entire operation. Supply lines, safe houses, communications. He's killing us by inches. Then kill him first. Harrison's smile is cold as ice. That's exactly what I plan to do. But first, we need to make him angry, make him sloppy, and I know exactly how to do it. David watches the burning convoy from his hidden position, pushing down memories of another fire, another betrayal. His wounds throb, reminding him that he's not invincible. But pain is a teacher, and he's learned its lessons well. The desert wind carries the sound of approaching vehicles, federal tactical teams responding to his intel. Good. Let them see what's really happening out here. Let them understand that this isn't just about drugs or territory anymore. This is about justice, about vengeance, about making sure no more good agents die because of corrupt leadership and cartel money. A drone buzzes overhead, not cartel, not federal, something else. Someone else watching, waiting. The game is getting bigger, drawing in players David hasn't identified yet. But that's a problem for another night. Right now, he has work to do. The cartel's supply lines are in chaos, their communications compromised, their professional soldiers running scared. El Coyote will have to react, will have to try something desperate to maintain control. Let him come. Let him send more men, more weapons, more technology. The desert is David's killing ground now, and every enemy they send just gives him more weapons to use against them. Dawn breaks over the mountains as David begins his withdrawal. Behind him, federal agents swarm the ambush site, gathering evidence that will tear holes in the cartel's operation. But he's already planning his next move, because somewhere out there, Harrison is watching, planning, preparing for a reunion. That's been years in the making. The man who betrayed their team, who left them to die in Afghanistan, is about to learn that some ghosts don't rest. Some ghosts just get better at hunting. The war isn't over. It's just entering a new phase. And this ghost is just getting started. The video plays on David's laptop. Grainy footage showing 3 Border Patrol agents bound and bloodied in a concrete room. El Coyote's voice carries across the secure channel, dripping with false concern. Your fellow officers have approximately 3 hours before my men start removing pieces, unless, of course, the Shadow wants to trade his life for theirs. David studies the footage with cold precision, noting details others might miss. The agent uniforms are authentically dirty. They were taken during actual patrol duty. The concrete walls show traces of copper oxidation, suggesting an old mining facility. But it's the light filtering through the high windows that tells him exactly where they are. The abandoned Santiago copper mine just across the Mexican border. He recognizes 2 of the captives, David Chen and Marcus Rodriguez. Good agents, who worked the night shift with him. The third is Michael Torres, a rookie who just transferred in last month. All clean records, no connection to Thompson's corruption. They were chosen specifically because they were honest. Perfect bait for a trap. Harrison's influence is obvious in the setup, the time limit, the public challenge, the threat to innocence, all designed to force an emotional response, make him attack recklessly. Classic psychological warfare, using everything Harrison knows about him from their years operating together. But Harrison forgot the most important lesson from Afghanistan. David learned to use his emotions as weapons. The cartel compound sprawls across the base of a small mountain, its defensive positions clearly visible from David's observation point. 50 men minimum on the perimeter, with roving patrols and sniper nests covering every approach. Thermal cameras sweep the grounds continuously while attack dogs prowl the shadows. They've turned the old mining facility into a fortress. Time to make it their tomb. David begins his approach 2 hours before the deadline, using maintenance tunnels that haven't appeared on any map since 1963. The passages are half-flooded, choked with debris and desert vermin. Perfect. No one will expect an attack through. Here, even Harrison won't think he'd risk the confined space with his injuries still healing. The first guard dies silently, David's garrote pulling tight before the man can make a sound. The body goes into a drainage culvert, positioned to be found later when David wants it found. The second guard takes a knife in the base of the skull. As David emerges from a ventilation shaft, precise, professional, personal. Inside the compound's main building, David moves like a shadow through maintenance corridors and access panels. Each step is calculated, each kill positioned to create maximum confusion when discovered. Let them think he's everywhere at once. Let the fear do his work for him. The radio chatter tells him his plan is working. Guards report missing colleagues, unexplained noises, shadows moving in secured areas. Harrison's voice cuts through occasionally, trying to maintain discipline, but David can hear the edge in his old commander's tone. Harrison knows what's coming. He just doesn't know from where. David reaches the security center undetected, studying the monitor bank through a ventilation grate. The hostages are being held in the main processing room, surrounded by guards. Harrison stands nearby, directing security with the same precise efficiency that once made him a legendary team leader. El Coyote paces nervously, checking his watch. Every few minutes, time to change the game. The first explosion rocks the compound's north wall, a cash charge David planted weeks ago during his initial recon. Guards rush to respond, leaving gaps in their coverage. The second explosion hits the power station 30 seconds later, plunging sections of the facility into darkness. Emergency lights kick in, but the thermal cameras are offline. Now the real work begins. David moves through the chaos like a force of nature, each action precise and devastating. Guards die in ones and twos, their bodies positioned to create maximum psychological impact. A sniper found hanging from his own perch. 2 men in a patrol vehicle with throats cut, while their radio still crackles with orders. Professional. Soldiers reduced to scared boys as an invisible predator hunts them in the dark. Harrison's voice rises above the chaos, directing teams to fall back and regroup, but David's already inside their defensive perimeter, moving through maintenance. Shafts and access tunnels toward his real target. The hostages are just a distraction, important but not his primary objective. He finds what he's looking for in a secured room near El Coyote's office. Servers containing the cartel's entire operation. Financial records, shipping routes, corrupt officials, everything. David plugs in a device that begins downloading and transmitting the data to multiple federal agencies. Let them burn it all down. The third explosion catches everyone by surprise. A shaped charge that breaches the main processing room from below. David emerges through the floor like a demon from hell, weapons blazing with mechanical precision. 3 guards die before they can raise their weapons. 2 more fall trying to shield El Coyote as he runs. Harrison reacts instantly, shoving the hostages behind cover as he returns fire. His shots are perfect, would have killed a normal man, but David isn't normal anymore. The bullets find only shadows as he seems to flow through the gunfire like smoke. "Ghost," Harrison's voice carries over the chaos. "You really want to do this? Risk their lives for your revenge?" David's response is another precise burst of fire that forces Harrison away from the hostages. "You lost the right to talk about risking lives in Afghanistan." He moves positions as he speaks, voice seeming to come from everywhere at once. "How much did they pay you to betray us? Was it worth watching your own men die?" The hostages are still bound but alive, watching with wide eyes as their rescuer systematically dismantles the cartel's defenses. David cuts their restraints with his combat knife, never taking his eyes off Harrison's position. "Service tunnel behind you leads to the surface. Go now." They don't need to be told twice. As soon as they're clear, David triggers his final surprise, charges planted throughout the facility's support structures. The entire building groans as key supports begin to fail. Harrison recognizes the tactic. He taught it to David years ago. "The whole place? Learned from the best." David's voice is cold as Arctic ice. "How's it feel being on the other side?" The firefight that follows is a masterpiece of close-quarters combat. 2 elite operators intimately familiar with each other's tactics, playing a lethal game of cat and mouse as the building collapses around them. Harrison is good, one of the best, but David has become something else, something that learned to hunt in the dark. El Coyote tries to flee in the chaos, only to find every exit blocked by precisely placed debris. The cartel leader fires wildly into the shadows, fear finally breaking through his composed exterior. "What are you?" "I'm the ghost you woke up." David's voice seems to come from everywhere at once. "The one you can't kill." The end comes quickly after that. El Coyote dies, trying to shoot his way out, his body falling beside the servers that will destroy his empire. Harrison makes a final stand in the command center, professional to the end. Their last exchange is brief, personal. "I know why," Harrison says, weapon trained on shadows. "You could have been the best of us." "I am the best of us." David's shot is perfect, just like Harrison taught him. "That's why I hunt monsters like you." Duppied. The compound continues to collapse as David makes his exit, using routes mapped out days in advance. Behind him, the cartel's fortress becomes a tomb for the men who thought they could trap a ghost. The hostages are already in federal custody, along with enough evidence to tear the entire operation apart. Miles away in secure government offices, analysts pore over the data David transmitted. Arrest warrants are being prepared, task forces mobilized. The cartel's entire infrastructure is about to be dismantled, along with every corrupt official they owned. But David's not done yet. Harrison was working for someone bigger, the same people who funded the research facility in Mexico City. Someone powerful enough to get classified military technology, connected enough to know about Afghanistan. The desert wind carries the sound of approaching sirens as federal tactical teams converge on the collapsed compound. David checks his weapons, mentally preparing for the next phase. The cartel was just the beginning. Now it's time to hunt bigger prey, because that's what ghosts do best. They haunt the guilty until justice is served. Dawn breaks over the desert as David disappears into the shadows. Behind him, the compound burns like a funeral pyre, marking the end of El Coyote's empire. But in secure facilities and hidden boardrooms, other players are already moving pieces on a larger board. They thought the ghost was just hunting cartels. They're about to learn how wrong they were. The real war is just beginning. The research facility rises from the Mexican desert like a black monolith, its walls gleaming in the moonlight. After El Coyote's death at the mining compound, David followed the money trail here, to a place that officially doesn't exist. The kind of facility where governments develop things they want to deny. Harrison's survival wasn't an accident. The security footage David recovered from the compound showed his old commander moving with inhuman speed during their firefight, shrugging off wounds that should have been fatal. Whatever they've been developing here changed him, turned him into something else, something that bleeds but won't die. Time to fix that. The facility's defenses are state-of-the-art: motion sensors, thermal imaging, autonomous drone patrols. But they're designed to stop human infiltrators. David's not quite human anymore either. The thermal suit he stole from the black site masks his heat signature, while the experimental cloaking technology makes him virtually invisible to electronic surveillance. The first guard dies without ever seeing what hit him. The second has time to realize something's wrong before David's knife finds his throat. Professional, precise, personal. Each kill brings him closer to the truth about what really happened. In Afghanistan, about why his team had to die. The intel he extracted from El Coyote's servers painted a disturbing picture. Project Chimera, a classified program to create soldiers who can't die, who heal from any wound. The perfect warriors. For battles governments want to deny. His old team wasn't sent to Afghanistan on a rescue mission. They were sent to die, to test the program's effectiveness. Harrison wasn't just their commander. He was the prototype. The facility's interior is a maze of laboratories and testing chambers. Through reinforced windows, David sees things that shouldn't exist. Men being torn apart and healing instantly. Soldiers moving faster than human reflexes allow. The future of warfare, paid for with cartel money and his team's blood. Welcome home, Ghost. Harrison's voice echoes through the facility speakers. I wondered how long it would take you to find this place. David moves through the shadows, placing charges at key structural points. How long, James? How long were you working for them before Afghanistan? Since the beginning. Harrison sounds almost proud. We were building something greater than ourselves, a new kind of warrior. The cartels were just funding, a necessary evil to create necessary monsters. You turned yourself into a lab rat. David's voice drips contempt. Let them make you into something inhuman. I evolved. Harrison's laugh carries an edge of madness. The wounds you gave me at the compound healed in minutes. I'm stronger, faster, virtually immortal. What they gave El Coyote was a prototype. What they gave me, that's the future. The future dies tonight. The firefight that follows defies physics and human limitation. Harrison moves like liquid metal, his enhanced reflexes making him nearly impossible to hit. But David's fought monsters before. He's become one himself. The first exchange leaves both men bleeding. David from a burst of superhuman speed that gets past his guard. Harrison from a specialized round designed to counteract enhanced healing. They circle each other in the facility's main testing chamber, two ghosts finally facing their past. You could have been part of it, Harrison says, his wounds visibly healing. Could have evolved beyond human limitation. I'd rather die human than live as whatever you've become. The battle escalates as both men empty their weapons, switching to blades in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Harrison's enhanced strength gives him an advantage, but David's years of hunting cartels have taught him to fight dirty. Every move is calculated to wear down his opponent's healing factor, every strike aimed at points that even regeneration can't quickly fix. They crash through laboratory equipment, scattering research and specimens. Morrison's enhanced speed lets him land devastating combinations, but David's precision keeps finding weak points. Blood slicks the floor as both men push beyond normal human endurance. You still don't understand, Harrison pants, his latest wounds already closing. This is bigger than cartels, bigger than revenge. We're creating the next step in human evolution. You're creating abominations. David's knife finds a gap in Harrison's defense, drawing more blood. Playing God with other people's lives. The fight carries them through the facility as David's charges begin to detonate. Secondary explosions tear through containment units, releasing things that should never have existed. Harrison's enhanced soldiers, the ones still in development, burn in fires hot enough to overcome their healing factors. All those years hunting cartels, Harrison says, his voice carrying that familiar command tone. Did you ever wonder why they never caught you? Why no one ever traced the ghost back to its source? The revelation hits David like a physical blow. You were protecting me, keeping me alive until you needed me. You're the other prototype ghost, the one that got away. Harrison's smile is predatory. Check your blood. The wounds from the compound should have killed you, but here you are, still fighting, still healing. David's mind races through years of impossible survivals, of wounds that should have been fatal, the experiments they did on the team before Afghanistan, the injections they called immunizations. His entire life since then has been a lie. The difference is choice. David snarls, launching another assault. You chose to become this thing. I'm choosing to end it. The final exchange is brutal, personal, decisive. Harrison's enhanced strength meets David's killing precision in a clash that shakes the facility's foundations. Both men are more than human now, both capable of dealing and surviving devastating damage. But only one of them has spent years learning how to hunt monsters. The killing blow comes from an angle Harrison doesn't expect. A modified white phosphorus round that burns hot enough to overwhelm even enhanced healing. The prototype screams as the chemical reaction consumes him from within. His regeneration, only prolonging the agony. That's the thing about playing God, David says, watching his old commander burn. Sometimes your creations turn on you. The facility burns as David retreats, hard drives and research data in hand. The truth about Project Chimera, about Afghanistan, about everything they did to create their perfect soldiers, all of it will be released to multiple agencies. Let the world see what monsters men create when they think no one's watching. But his work isn't finished. Harrison was right about one thing. This goes beyond cartels. Someone higher up authorized these experiments, funded the research, pointed Harrison at targets like El Coyote to field test their creations. David checks his weapons as approaching sirens fill the night. His wounds are already healing. Proof that Harrison was telling the truth about what they made him. But he won't let it change him. Won't let it turn him into the kind of monster they wanted, because that's the real difference between him and Harrison. One chose to become inhuman to gain power. The other chose to remain human despite it. Dawn breaks over the desert as David disappears into the shadows. Behind him, the facility burns like a funeral pyre, erasing evidence of mankind's attempts to play God. But somewhere in secure facilities and hidden boardrooms, other projects continue. Other monsters wait to be created. Good, give him something to hunt. Because that's what ghosts do best. They haunt the guilty until justice is served. And this ghost, he's just getting started. The real war is about to begin. Dawn breaks over the Arizona Border Patrol station as federal vehicles swarm the parking lot. DEA tactical teams move with precision, weapons ready as they breach the building. Inside, Station Chief Thompson is already shredding documents when they kick in his office door. Too late. The evidence is already out there, spreading like wildfire through secure channels. David watches from a distant ridge as Thompson is led out in handcuffs, the corrupt chief's face ashen as he realizes the depth of his exposure. The data stolen from El Coyote's servers and Harrison's research facility has torn the veil off years of corruption. Wire transfers, meeting logs, patrol schedules sold to the cartels, all of it meticulously documented and distributed to multiple agencies. His secure phone buzzes with a message he's been waiting for. 3 agents down, critically wounded but alive. Thompson had one last play. Assassins sent to eliminate the hostages David rescued from the mining facility. But David was waiting, had been watching from the shadows since they reached the safe house. The would-be killers never knew what hit them. The radio scanner picks up chatter from across 3 states as synchronized raids hit police stations, border checkpoints, and government offices. High-ranking officials who thought their cartel connections were buried too deep to trace are learning a hard lesson about digital footprints. The evidence is ironclad, the warrants bulletproof. This time there will be no escaping justice. His secure phone buzzes again, a number he hasn't seen in years. Captain Reynolds, his old SEAL team commander from before Afghanistan. Impressive work, Ghost. The brass is buzzing about what you've uncovered. There's talk of reinstating your commission, bringing you back into the fold. We could use someone with your particular skills. David watches another convoy of federal vehicles approach the station. Not interested in working for people who experiment on their own soldiers. That was a rogue operation. The officials who authorized Project Chimera are being dealt with, like they dealt with Harrison. David's voice carries an edge of cold steel. I've seen how the system handles its mistakes. I work better alone. You're different now, Reynolds says carefully. The treatments they gave you, the abilities you've developed, you need monitoring, support. I need to hunt. David ends the call, watching as more corrupted officials are led out in chains. Reynolds means well, but he doesn't understand. Can't understand what it means to become the thing monsters fear. The evidence he released paints a damning picture. Border Patrol agents murdered for trying to expose corruption, DEA operations compromised by bought officials, Harrison's experimental program using cartel money to create enhanced soldiers. Threads of corruption weaving through every level of law enforcement and government. But the highest threads still lead somewhere else. Something bigger than cartels, bigger than corrupt chiefs and compromised agents. The kind of operation that can get classified military technology and authorize experimental programs on active duty soldiers. His laptop chirps with another decrypted file from Harrison's facility. Project Chimera wasn't just about creating enhanced soldiers, it was about control. The treatments that gave them accelerated healing and superhuman abilities also made them dependent on specialized compounds that only the program could provide. That's why Harrison stayed loyal. why he helped them test their creations on cartel soldiers. He needed their treatments to maintain his enhancements. But David's different. Whatever they did to him in Afghanistan created something else, something that doesn't need their chemicals to survive, something that can hunt them. A helicopter thunders overhead, unmarked, no registration numbers. Two men in suits exit the border patrol station, moving with the kind of precision that screams covert operative. They're already trying to contain the damage, limit exposure of their darker operations. Let them try. The evidence is already spreading through too many channels to stop. By nightfall, news stations across the country will be running stories about corruption in border law enforcement. Politicians will demand investigations. Careers will end. But David's already focused on his next target. The laptop displays profiles of other research facilities, other programs hiding behind corporate facades and government contracts. More monsters wearing human faces, playing with forces they don't understand. His wounds from the fight with Harrison have already healed, proof that he's become something else. But unlike Harrison, he won't let it change who he is, won't let their experiments turn him into the kind of monster they wanted to create. The sun climbs higher as David begins packing his gear. Behind him, the border patrol station has become a circus of federal agencies and news crews. The official story will talk about cartel corruption and compromised officials. They'll mention El Coyote's death, the destruction of his organization, maybe even give medals to the agents who helped bring it down. But they won't mention the ghost who haunts the borderlands, the predator that hunts other monsters, the thing that used to be a Navy SEAL before someone tried to play God with soldiers' lives. That's fine. Let them have their official stories. He has other hunters to find, other monsters to eliminate, because somewhere out there, in secure facilities and hidden laboratories, more projects like Chimera are continuing. More experiments are being conducted on soldiers who don't know what they're becoming. David shoulders his rifle and disappears. Into the desert heat. They thought the ghost was just hunting cartels. They're about to learn how wrong they were. The real hunting is just beginning. Because that's what ghosts do best. They haunt the guilty until justice is served. And this ghost, he's got a lot of hunting left to do. The war against the cartels was just the beginning. Now it's time to hunt the real monsters, the ones who wear suits instead of tactical gear, who hide behind government clearances instead of compound walls. They thought they could play God with soldiers' lives, turn men into monsters for their own purposes. They're about to learn that some monsters can't be controlled, some ghosts can't be contained. And this ghost, he's just getting started. The real war begins now. Dawn breaks over the desert as David moves like a shadow through the morning heat. Behind him, justice is being served to the corrupt and compromised. Ahead of him, bigger prey waits, thinking their power and position will protect them. They're wrong, because now they face something they never planned for. A ghost who hunts other monsters, a weapon they created turned against them, a force for justice that can't be bought, can't be stopped, and can't be killed. The hunt continues. And this time, the monsters wearing suits are the prey. Let them run. Let them hide. Let them think their money and power will save them. The ghost is coming, and justice will be served. Dawn breaks over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. A new day is beginning, and somewhere out there a ghost is hunting. The real war has just begun. Desert winds scatter spent bullet casings across sun-bleached rocks as David stands at the edge of the canyon where it all began. Below, Forensics teams comb through the wreckage of El Coyote's empire. They'll find enough evidence to fill federal courtrooms for years, but they won't find what really matters. They won't find the truth about Project Chimera, about soldiers turned into something else, about experiments that crossed lines that should never be crossed. That evidence is already spreading through channels too secure to trace, reaching people who know what to do with it. The system will clean up its visible corruption, parade handcuffed officials before cameras, claim justice has been served. But David knows better. In cantinas and safe houses across the border, survivors whisper about the ghost who hunted them. They speak of a predator that can't be killed, that appears and vanishes like smoke, that turns men's own fear into a weapon. Their stories grow with each telling. The ghost becomes a demon, a vengeful spirit, something not quite human. They're closer to the truth than they know. David checks his weapons one last time, habits carved into muscle memory by years of combat. His wounds from the facility have already healed, leaving only scars that fade too quickly. Proof that, whatever they made him into, it's not entirely human anymore. But unlike Harrison, he won't let that change who he is, won't let their experiments turn him into the kind of monster they wanted to create. The rising sun paints the Arizona dunes, blood red as he shoulders his rifle. Somewhere out there in hidden laboratories and secure facilities, other projects like Chimera continue. Other soldiers are being transformed into things they don't understand. Other monsters are being created by men who think they can play God. Good. Give him something to hunt, because that's what ghosts do best. They haunt the guilty until justice is served. The cartel thought they were the predators in these borderlands. They learned too late that some men can't be hunted, some men become something else. Something that hunts monsters. David fades into the desert heat like a mirage, leaving only rumors and fear behind. El Coyote's empire lies in ruins, its corrupted allies exposed, its soldiers scattered to the winds. But his work isn't finished. It's just beginning. Because somewhere out there, other predators are waiting, other monsters need hunting, and this ghost, he's just getting started. The desert wind carries his whispered truth across the dunes. Some men can't be hunted. The war continues, and justice will be served. Dawn breaks over a new battlefield, and somewhere out there, a ghost is hunting. The real war has just begun. And this time, the monsters are about to learn why some ghosts are best left undisturbed. The hunt continues, and this shadow is just getting started. For in the end, that's what justice demands. A ghost to hunt the monsters, a shadow to bring light to darkness, a weapon turned against those who would abuse power. Let them run. Let them hide. Let them think their money and influence will protect them. The ghost is coming, and this time there will be nowhere to hide. Because some men can't be bought, can't be stopped, can't be killed. Some men become something. Or they become justice itself. And in the end, that's what the ghost has become. Not just a hunter, but justice incarnate. Let the hunt begin anew, for the war isn't over, it's just beginning, and this ghost, he's got a lot of hunting left to do. The sun rises on a new day, on new battles to be fought, on new monsters to be hunted, and somewhere out there, a ghost moves through the shadows, bringing justice to those who thought themselves above it. The real war continues. And this shadow, he's just getting started. For in the desert, some legends are born of truth, and some ghosts. They never rest until justice is served. The hunt goes on, for that is what ghosts do best. They haunt the guilty until justice prevails. And this ghost, he's got a lot of haunting left to do. Dawn breaks over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of blood and gold. A new day is beginning, and somewhere out there, a ghost is hunting. The real war has just begun, for in the end, that's what justice demands. And that's what this ghost has become, justice itself. Let them run, let them hide. The shadow is coming, and this time there will be nowhere to hide, for some men can't be hunted. Some men become the hunters, and this hunter, he's just getting started. The war continues, and justice will be served, one shadow at a time, one monster at a time, until all the guilty have been brought to justice. For that is what ghosts do best. They haunt the guilty until justice is served, and this ghost, he's got a lot of hunting left to do. The real war continues, and somewhere out there, in the desert shadows, a ghost is hunting. The hunt never ends, for justice must be served, and some ghosts, they never rest until it is. Dawn breaks over the Arizona desert. A new day is beginning, and somewhere out there, a ghost is hunting. The real war has just begun. The final rays of sunset paint the desert crimson as David stands atop the ridge, watching the scene unfold below. Federal agents swarm across what was once El Coyote's territory, dismantling the last vestiges of his empire. But David's attention is focused elsewhere, on a secure compound nestled deep in the mountains, far from prying eyes. This is where it all leads back to, the heart of Project Chimera, not a research facility or cartel hideout, but a pristine corporate headquarters belonging to Nexus Dynamics. Behind its gleaming walls and manicured lawns lie the true architects of everything. The men who turn soldiers into monsters, who use cartels to test their creations, who thought themselves untouchable. David's laptop displays the final pieces of evidence gathered from Harrison's facility. Project authorizations bearing Nexus signatures, offshore accounts funneling money to criminal organizations, lists of test subjects that read like a casualty report, all the threads leading to one place. The compound's security is state-of-the-art. Motion sensors, automated defense systems, elite private military contractors. They think they're safe behind their walls and weapons. They're about to learn how wrong they are, because David isn't just a ghost anymore. He's become something they never planned for. Their own weapon turned against them, a force for justice they can't control, can't stop, can't kill. Everything they made him into will now be used to bring them down. The hunt that began in the desert is about to end where it all started, and this time there will be nowhere for the real monsters to hide. Dawn is coming, and with it, justice. For that is what ghosts do best. They haunt the guilty until justice is served. And this ghost, he's got one last hunt to complete. The real war ends tonight, and somewhere in the gathering darkness, a shadow moves. The final hunt begins. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.